You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Naruto Enters Food Wars? Shokugeki no Soma. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Hector Flores on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Well, after a night of actions that made Soma think he had more actions than a PWN star, he got ready to leave except for one thing. His mother reminded him that he needs to take a scroll of basic ingredients with him just in case he needs to cook something when he gets there. The real reason was Joichiro read the acceptance letter and it said quite clearly that a test of his cooking skills was going to be done by the person in charge of his dorm, which by tradition it would be the Polar Star dorm, since that was the dorm both of his parents called home while they studied there. The fact is that Soma for some strange reason managed to get on the bus to the college unlike when he went to take the test, and the thing is there weren't that many new students, while the place had a horrible reputation of having extremely hard entrance exams, and the fact that since it was one of the world's most elite culinary colleges, it was also extremely demanding about what they expect from their students. Soma didn't know anyone on the bus, so that made for a particularly quiet and boring trip, but he knew that he would at least meet some of the friends he made during his travels with his father. The fact is that for some strange reason, Yaeko has been working pretty hard for his father and even established their own real estate investment business. It was making them quite a bit of money, while at the same time helping to renovate and improve the nearby shops at their shopping street where their restaurant was. Yaeko's only request is to make sure he doesn't forget about her when he ends up meeting cute girls in the school he was going to. Aki and Mayumi lived in their family home now, since they decided to help his family as waitresses in the family restaurant. As he finally made it, he was told to go to a nearby place for the commencement and the school to make the start of class greetings and orientation, to which the place had many signs showing the right way. As he got there, a person he met once before, the aide of Irina, if he remembers correctly, told him that he would need to be ready since he was chosen as the student representative of his year due to how well he did on his test. First, it was the introduction of the youngest student to become a member of the elite council, a group of people that were right below the school director, which means they were more powerful and had more authority than the teachers and staff of the school. Soma was not surprised at all to find out it was Irina. Some people might say that this is what is called nepotism at work, but Soma truly believed that she had improved a lot in her cooking skills after they managed to get her to rethink what her skill was truly useful for. She even explained the dishes that failed to pass the entrance exam and even gave them tips on how to correct those errors, so she can't be that bad. Her grandfather, however, was very much different from how he remembered him during Irina's birthday. He was so intimidating that some of the students called him the evil king of the culinary world, or the don of the mafia that ruled every aspect of food cultivation and preparation. This is the first day here at this place of learning. You shall learn many wonderful subjects that go beyond mere cooking. They cover everything and anything from economics, advertisements, negotiations, and many others. But do not take this place as just another college. This place is much harsher than any other college in the world. For you see, this place is sealed within its dimension. While yes, you can learn to be some of the best chefs in the world, remember that while this place holds amazing ingredients that no one outside of this place can even imagine, it also holds creatures that are so terrifying that they could quite easily make a meal out of you. Competition, education, and the will to survive, to improve, that is what you shall need to even aspire to graduate from this place. Out of 1,000 students, only 5 managed to graduate last year, and all those that failed became the stepping stones to allow those few with genuine skill and drive to get to the top by climbing onto their shoulders. So my advice to you is this: never let your guard down, never be content with your skills, for in this battlefield that is this place, only those that have the drive to constantly improve have any chance of graduating from this place. For those that have the drive know that hellish training, terrible fights, and nightmarish difficulty await, but for those that graduate, glory and fame await. After he left the platform and he walked over to his granddaughter, he was smiling, but everyone else was terrified, so Soma figured that they need to focus on something, on anything other than the feeling of terror they were feeling. As his name was called forth as the class representative, he walked over to the place where Irina's grandfather had been standing and gave his speech. The name is Soma Uzumaki. For those that have come here, I have to tell you that I am sorry if you think you are going to be the best here, cause the number one spot is going to be mine. I have been cooking and working at a restaurant ever since I was 3 years old, so I am not going to lose to a bunch of people that never once worked in an actual kitchen thinking that learning from a book is the only thing you need to become a chef. This made every single student who heard him become furious, so much so that they forgot about even the reason why they had been scared before, which was entirely the reason why he said it, and has claimed that he would be the number one student in the school, motivated them to improve so that one day they can knock the idiot who challenged them from his high horse. All in all, he got them to get over the feelings of fear and dread and got them motivated to do even better than he did, but he was no fool. He also knew that some of these students were the sort of son that cheat and do terrible things to others. If they can't advance with their skills, they would make sure others fall, and when they fail they will succeed by still being in the school. They used any means to get ahead, be it backstabbing, sabotaging, bribes, or even cheating. Soma knew that while they say this place is a place of learning, he knew better and knew this was a battlefield, and he was ready for it since he had all the memories and skills he had from his previous life. In the school, it was decided by the director and some of the teachers that the first day when the new students would begin their studies, the day would be a trial by fire of sorts. This was done to expel the weak and the ones with the least possibility of graduating. This was done by sending these students to take a class from some of the most strict and demanding teachers. Soma found himself being assigned to a class with a teacher that everyone else feared. The man was called the chef that never smiles. His name was Roland Chappelle, and he was a specialist in French cooking. He expected perfection from his students and made no attempt at being merciful or kind. He said it himself: if any dish he grades is not an A, then it was instantly a failing grade, and a failing grade if a student gets 3 such grades are grounds for immediate expulsion. Soma was quite comfortable in the kitchen, and as such he began to look at the place with a bit of wonder and excitement. He had never seen a kitchen, spice rack, and even the way the ingredients were stored. It was like he was in a high-priced kitchen of a major hotel, and he knows this because he has seen those kitchens and they pale by comparison to what he was looking at. The teacher divided the class into pairs, and each pair had 30 minutes to produce a dish. The professor said that the recipe was on the board and it had every step for its preparation. Ingredients were given to the team, and as he came to his table he soon realized, much to her delight, that his partner was Megumi. It seems that working with his father to help her grow her self-confidence and deal with her fears was now being rewarded. Soma, however, didn't want to waste time following the recipe word by word and follow it blindly, so he suggested that they do something fun with the recipe. Megumi, seeing the way he was smiling, agreed almost immediately because she was curious about what he had planned. So Soma told her that they need to use honey to prepare the meat and the sauce for the dish. This would allow them to tenderize the meat and get the dish ready sooner than the other students. Megumi of course wanted to know why he was going this far to finish their dish before anyone else. Soma looked at her: because the sooner we finish it, the fewer chances there are for other teams to do things to it to make us both fail. I wouldn't put it past them to get revenge on me, at the very least for me declaring that I will be trying to take the number one spot, or because Irina sort of kissed me after I got done with my little speech. That is when she asked him how does he know Irina Nakiri. How? My mentor is quite friendly with the director of this school, so he did a couple of favors for the parents of his precious granddaughters. I went with him to help him with the favor of cooking for 2 birthday parties. One was in Denmark, for Alice, and the other was the birthday party for Irina. My mentor gave her a lesson with my help, and so we became friends. But Megumi, we need to focus. The sooner we finish also will show our professor that we can think outside the box and innovate, even that we have talent. So even if you trust most of our classmates, then think of it as a way to impress our professor with our culinary imagination and drive. She followed the recipes, mostly, but as the cooking was done, Soma made a few changes here and there along the way. One major would be to include honey in the recipe. The recipe called for a cooking time of almost 30 minutes. Soma and Megumi were done in 10. They simply walked over to the professor saying that they wished to present their dish, which to many thought was pure suicide, and mocked them as they walked towards the professor's table. They were saying things like they are bound to fail or that they are willing to present a half-finished dish since they know they got no hope of finishing the dish with their skills. Some laughed at Soma because they thought he was going to be expelled on the first day, so much for the guy who said was going to be number one. Soma didn't care and told Megumi to ignore their comments. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki, and Ms. Tadakoro, you do realize that you still have time to complete the assignment and there is no rush, but if you wish for me to grade it I must ask, what exactly did you do to make you think this dish is ready for me to grade? Soma told him that as a kid he often experimented with many ingredients to find the effects they have on other ingredients. One was when he read that someone used pineapple to tenderize meat. He could never waste an entire pineapple for one of his experiments, so he looked for something else to use, something that would be just as good or better, and he found it, honey. It is widely available since it is reasonably priced and has a long shelf life. I used honey to tenderize the meat and in the sauce. By doing this the time it takes to prepare the dish was much less time than it would normally take. I also took the knowledge that my mentor Joichiro Saiba taught me about French cuisine and how to properly tenderize meat. I do hope that you find this dish to be enjoyable to you, Professor. The professor looked at the dish and could see that the dish was done to perfection and in even less time than it would normally take. He decided to taste the dish and one taste of it was so delicious, so sweet and wonderful that the professor did something he never did before. He could not help but smile as he savored the taste of it. Monsieur Uzumaki and Mademoiselle Tadakoro, I assigned a basic French dish, bœuf bourguignon. No reason to be cruel or too harsh on my pupils, but you managed to not only make the dish delicious, a delight to my palate, but also improved it in ways that amaze me. I, however, am sorry to tell you that I can only give this dish an A, and that is simply because I do not have the authority to give it an even higher grade than that, for it, in my opinion, deserves it. I see that having you both in my class will bring much enjoyment and I am glad to see that. As the two had 20 minutes left, Soma asked if he could cook something for himself while they wait for all the other students to present their dishes, to which Professor Chappelle told him to feel free and use any ingredient in the classroom, which Soma thanked him as he and Megumi returned to the table, and Soma got something from the freezer of the classroom and another jar that seemed to be peanut butter. Megumi saw him cook a couple of squid tentacles, only to tenderize two of them with honey, and she asked him what was he making. Oh, this is an old family practice that my mentor taught me. I am making a palate cleanser. It is something that helps clean my palate and lets me have a clear taste of the next recipe I am to prepare without being influenced with the taste of a previous recipe. This is one of my palate cleansers. I have to warn you however that this is quite disgusting, and the taste can cause nightmares to those that are unprepared for it, but since it is so disgusting, it wipes out the taste of anything I ate before this, hence palate cleanser. She was quite curious as to what it was and how he made it. He confessed it was something he created as one of his many failed dishes, and his mentor encouraged him to write down many of them since they were excellent palate cleansers. He simply called it squid tentacles braised in honey and peanut butter, as the reason why he was doing this is quite simple. After this he would have to go and get to his dorm, and thus he will be ready for his dorm entrance exam with a clean palate. As she heard him this made sense, but she didn't want to eat that disgusting dish unless she needed to, and since she has already been accepted into the dorm she doesn't need to cook a thing. One after another presented the dishes, some got an A but many were given a failing grade, and some for obvious reasons, like the two idiots who spent more time complaining that their plans to screw over Soma went to SHT rather than pay attention to the food they were cooking. They began with ingredients and ended up presenting something that could only be called charcoal. As they left, Soma took the remaining squid tentacles that he had dried out as a snack, and yes, even the ones that were braised with honey and peanut butter, just in case. The campus was immense and it took him some time to finally find the dorm, which looked like a rundown mansion if he was being honest. Not exactly matching how his mother described it. To say that he found the entire group of people living in the dorm crazy would be a major understatement. One girl was chasing animals, another turned his room into a smoker, and three were constantly arguing, two against each other and one against the first two for always wrecking or causing a mess in his room. That is when a very direct and strong-willed mature lady was heard screaming at the idiots who were making a mess, and that situation was taken care of by judicious use of threats and fear. She finally looked at Soma and began to check him out for some strange reason. I am Fumio Daimoto, the blessed mother of this dorm, or the goddess of Polar Star Dorm. you must be the student I've been waiting. A former resident told me her son might be coming to my dorm. I believe you know that to be allowed to live in this dorm, you must pass my test, or else you will be forced to sleep outside. Soma told her he knows exactly what he needs to do. He was lectured by his mentor quite extensively about the school and the rules of this particular dorm, and the only thing he needs is to be shown to the kitchen so he can prepare a meal that will have him love it so much she might want to kiss him. Fumio was upset at the comment but did show him to a restaurant-quality kitchen. The place was impressive, and he went to the fridge and found a few ingredients, mostly leftovers of things that had been used to make other ingredients, a can of mackerel, some bread crumbs, some eggs, and other ingredients, so he decided to make a meal out of this, and thanks to the scroll he had, he quickly made a 5-course meal for Fumio. As soon as Fumio takes a single bite of the main dish which was made using mackerel, bread crumbs, and egg to create a patty, and she is marveled at the fact that aside from some vegetables that are quite common and easy to obtain, since they have a field of these growing in the backyard of the dorm, and basically leftover ingredients that she used to make the dinner for that night. She tasted the soup and was amazed by the taste of the soup, thinking it had wonderful flavor, except that there is nothing in the kitchen that can be used to make such a rich and delicious stock to make the soup. That is when Soma simply said he used something he brought with him, as he flicked the dried squid tentacle that was in his mouth, explaining that boiling one of his snack dried squid tentacles in some water, and adding some salt, create a truly delicious stock, and it was easy for him to turn it into the soup she was enjoying. As for the other dishes was made using the remaining vegetables to make the other dishes. She was amazed what he could do with so little. As she eats more of it, she is reminded of how he met her late husband, who was also a fisherman, and she remembered that it was during a cold night that she finally asked her then crush to kiss her and keep her warm since she was cold, wearing a light dress and blouse in a rather rosy color. As she remembered this, she realized that Soma reminded her of her late husband so much that somehow she started to think she was young again, and this was the night when her husband kissed her for the first time, as she asked Soma to not make a girl beg for it and kiss her already. Soma is the way that he is, decided to do as she asked and kissed her passionately on her lips, which was sadly interrupted by a young woman with light blonde hair, who was rather upset as she walked up to Fumio, who was blushing like a teenager. "Grandmother, how can you be so shameless, kissing a student that could be a new tenant of the dorm right in the middle of the kitchen? You know this place should be treated with respect, and yet you are kissing a guy like a corny teenager, and that is saying something coming from me." "Oh come on, it was just a simple kiss. His cooking reminded me of my husband and I found myself seeing him as my long-dead husband, and upon seeing that I asked him to kiss me, the same way I asked my then-boyfriend long ago, and he kindly kissed me as I requested. I don't see why you are so salty about it. Even you must know that there are rumors that this guy is engaged to marry the girl with the god's palette." The young woman, still angry about what her grandmother was doing, was even more so after what she said. "I don't even know who the guy who you were shamelessly kissing is, so that makes like to nothing to me. What I do care about are you acting in such a shameful manner. You are the dorm mother of this place. You, therefore, are the moral and ethical model of what the students that live in this dorm follow." To which Fumio pouts and looks at the young woman and walks near Soma. "Soma, I would like you to meet my granddaughter Hana. Hana, I don't see why you had to kill the mood. Honestly, it is like you want to have a taste of the lips I just tasted, but honestly, it is not like I was going to strp and sleep with him on the kitchen floor. What is getting your panties in a twist?" Hana walked over to them and said she doesn't want her to be talking about panties when she is not even wearing any, so stop trying to embarrass her. At least tell him who the guy is, and did he pass the dorm entrance exam, or is she going to have to find him a place to sleep outside of the school? Fumio laughed. This guy just cooked a 5-course meal using only scrap and leftovers, so yes, he passed, and his name is Soma Uzumaki. As for you Soma, your room is room 303, your mentor used to stay in that room and I think you are going to like it. This was when Fumio walked over to him and handed him his key, which he took gladly and went to check out the room. It must not have been used in a while, and if another student used it he imagined that it must be as bad as a pigsty, so he went to his room, but not before thanking Fumio and saying he will see her in the morning, to ask him if she or her granddaughter need any help. Surprisingly enough, the room was actually clean, like nobody has lived in it for years, and that saved him a lot of effort in cleaning the place. He quickly placed his clothes in the drawers and hung his clothes in the closet. He even managed to find a shoe rack for his shoes that range from exercise to actual dress shoes. decided that after putting away his clothes and a quick bath, which much to his shock the room has a toilet and sink, but the baths are a large bathing area at the end of the corridor on each floor. A bath schedule was placed to designate when men and when women residents take their baths. As he was ready to take a nap, he heard something like a person moving in the next room as a part of the ceiling opened and a person looked down at him. "Hey new guy, why are you taking a nap? Come on, get up, you don't want to miss the welcome party for all new residents, do you?" Soma was quick to tell him that he had quite a busy day and that his next day was going to be probably even worse, so he might want to take the chance to get some sleep. That is when the guy who was looking down from the opening in the ceiling jumped down and grabbed him. Good thing he was still dressed when he tried to take the nap, as he told him that this is a perfect chance to form friendships with the other residents of the dorm. They will spend so much time together they might as well treat each other as family. Soma turned to the young man standing before him, facial expression cautious yet polite. He glanced at what was in his pockets, then shook his head lightly and said, "If you're trying to take something from me, I'm sorry, but as you can see, I hardly have anything worth taking." His voice carried a tone of calm resignation, almost amused at the situation. Soma's words hung in the air for a moment, and the young man beside him suddenly burst into laughter. It was a warm, genuine chuckle, not at all the sound of someone trying to intimidate or threaten. Instead, it struck Soma as relaxed and friendly, like someone who simply enjoyed a good joke or a light moment amid the chaos. "No, I'm not a robber or a mugger," the guy said, still chuckling. His voice was friendly and easygoing, and he made a small gesture to reassure Soma. "I'm just a student. I live here at the dorm 2 Polar Star dorm, like you. I just wanted to give you a warm welcome, that's all. My name's Satoshi Ishiki." He extended a hand, and Soma hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Satoshi's handshake was firm but not aggressive, conveying confidence and friendliness that eased Soma's initial wariness. Then Satoshi added, "I was planning to invite you to a little get-together we're throwing for the new students. It's just a small gathering to make sure you feel included, you know." Soma nodded slowly, still unsure but also realizing he didn't have much choice. Making an impression on the other students might help him settle into his new environment. The idea of a welcoming party sounded decent enough, better than wandering the dorm alone, trying to figure out what to do or who to talk to. He figured he might as well go, especially since Satoshi had mentioned the gathering would be held in the room of one of their fellow students. It was polite to accept, and honestly, Soma saw the event as an opportunity. Maybe he could even bring something to eat or drink, even if it was just a simple snack, to show good faith and friendliness. Satoshi gently guided him through a maze of hallways, past door after door until they reached a room that looked lived in but tidy. Inside was a small band of students, around 3 guys and several young women immersed in their conversations. Soma's eyes were drawn to 2 guys who appeared deeply engaged in a heated debate, voices rising and falling like a small storm. One of them, Shoji Saito, gestured animatedly, his face flushed and eyes intense. The other, Daigo Aoki, crossed his arms and responded with equal fervor, voice sharp with conviction. The 2 argued about some trivial point: sports, school, or maybe politics. Soma couldn't quite tell. But what was clear was the passion behind their words. They were both stubborn, each believing they had the right way, feelings surfacing in their tone: anger, frustration, and competitiveness flickering through the conversation. Meanwhile, a third guy, Zenji Marui, was trying to keep things from spiraling out of control. He had his head slightly bowed over a pile of textbooks and notes, trying to focus on his studies. He looked up with mild annoyance when they started to raise their voices, raising his hand in a gentle, almost pleading gesture. "Guys, come on. We're supposed to study for exams. Can we keep it down?" His tone was calm, but there was a sense of genuine concern behind his words. This small voice of reason was the calm eye in the storm of stubborn opinions. Satoshi pointed to each of them as he spoke. "That's Shoji Saito," he said, nodding toward the fiery young man. "And that's Daigo Aoki. Both are passionate about their beliefs. They tend to clash, but for the most part, they're good kids just full of fire." Then he turned and nodded toward Zenji. And that's Zenji Marui. He's the opposite of them, studious, quiet, more about books than fights. He's just trying to keep the peace and focus on his exams. Soma looked around and felt a bit more at ease. The room was neat, and Zenji's calm presence seemed to balance out the chaos of the others' arguments. Soma whispered his thanks to Zenji for allowing him into his room, his voice respectful. Zenji nodded back, a little awkward but friendly. Soma promised softly, after this, no matter how messy things get, I'll stay and help clean up. No worries. The words made Zenji blink in surprise, and then he regarded Soma with a new interest, realizing that this newcomer was kinder than most of the students he'd met here. As the small party began, Soma noticed how the girls seemed intrigued by his quiet, polite attitude. They exchanged glances, whispering among themselves about his reserved demeanor and sincere smile. Soma felt the weight of their gaze, mild curiosity mixed with friendliness. It was an unspoken moment of acceptance, one that made him realize he might have found a few people he could genuinely connect with here. Each student of Polar Star Dorm took turns showing off their cooking skills, eager to share their favorites with the others. The air was filled with the smell of spices and the promise of delicious food. Some students brought out signature dishes that they had practiced many times before. Others presented something more unique, like a drink they called rice juice. Soma watched curiously as they poured colorful liquids and took small sips, recognizing it as sake, a popular rice wine. Its aroma was sweet but with a sharp tang, and the way they served it added a special touch. Satoshi, the most enthusiastic among them, announced he had prepared a spring-themed salmon dish. Fresh salmon steaks were grilled just right, with herbs that made them fragrant and juicy. Bright green peas and delicate cherry blossoms added a visual pop. Everyone gathered around to taste the dish, nodding approvingly as the flavors burst in their mouths. The simple yet refined presentation made it a highlight of the party. The dorm manager, a kind woman with a warm smile, chimed in when the conversation turned to food supplies. She mentioned she had some jerky tucked away in her room, just in case anyone wanted a snack later. Her voice was gentle but firm, adding a comforting presence to the lively scene. When Daigo heard this, he nodded appreciatively, explaining that the lady manager was always generous. He chuckled and said he was heading off now to get some jerky, adding that she always took care of everyone with her kind gestures. While the others continued exchanging stories, the topic shifted to Soma, who seemed a bit out of place. They wanted to know exactly why he had come to such a brutal, unforgiving cooking school. Soma, with a calm yet amused look, leaned back and explained that his father had made it clear from the start. If Soma hadn't become a high-ranking member of the student council here, he would never have been allowed to take over their family restaurant. That made sense, but Soma's smile hinted at other reasons as well. He joked about his childhood, saying he grew up in food fights against his family, a playful battleground involving his father, mother, and even his younger sister. They tossed rice, threw vegetables, and challenged each other to cook duels at every chance. Hearing this, Satoshi's eyes lit up. She was intrigued by Soma's stories and leaned forward with a grin. "Would you show us some of that cooking sometime?" she asked eagerly. Soma's face brightened at the chance to demonstrate, especially if he could prepare something similar to what he'd done with the salmon dish. He told her he'd love to, especially if he could show how to cook fish perfectly using a slow braising method. His eyes twinkled as he described the process, explaining that his father always said this was the best way to bring out flavor and tenderness in fish. It involved slowly simmering the fillet in a seasoned broth, allowing the meat to absorb all the rich flavors. Satoshi listened carefully and nodded. "Your family's cooking style sounds so diverse," she said. "Your dad's traveled all over, and your mom's been helping people as part of that Chefs Without Borders thing. That's pretty cool." Soma smiled at her words, feeling proud. He explained that his father's experience in professional kitchens and international trips had shaped his approach to food. His father had worked in places ranging from bustling city markets in Tokyo to quiet coastal villages in Europe. Every place added a new layer to his cooking. His mother, on the other hand, was a dedicated chef turned humanitarian. She traveled with her team, offering meals and aid in disaster zones. Soma's sister, just a bit older than him, often went along too, helping with logistics and comforting those in need. He revealed that his sister had left for a while, traveling with their mother, and that his father often cooked for large groups during their trips. Soma was pulled into the cooking world early, often helping out with simple tasks. His parents told him stories of their adventures, inspiring him to try new flavors and techniques. That's how Soma had grown into a cook with an adventurous spirit, eager to learn and blend different styles. As the conversation deepened, the focus shifted to the upcoming cook-off. Soma felt a quiet confidence. He envisioned creating a magnificent dish, a perfect blend of tradition and innovation. The scene sharpened as he began preparing his ingredients, carefully selecting the freshest fish from the kitchen. His knife worked swiftly but gently, cleaning and slicing the fillet while the others watched in fascination. The kitchen was filled with the fragrant aroma of spices, herbs, and sizzling fish, creating an atmosphere of anticipation. Satoshi watched intently as Soma explained his method. She asked questions about the braising technique, how long it took, what seasonings he used, and Soma responded with a relaxed smile. The process involved infusing the fish with a mix of soy sauce, ginger, and a hint of citrus. As he worked, Soma shared stories of his past kitchen experiments, his trials with different marinades, and how he liked to add a bit of surprise to his dishes. Once everything was in place, Soma carefully placed the fish in a hot pan, then lowered the heat, letting it cook slowly. The flavors seeped into the meat as the fish turned an appealing golden brown. Meanwhile, he cooked a side of rice, flavored lightly with herbs and a touch of spring vegetables, peas, radish, and edible blossoms to add color and freshness to the plate. When it was ready, Soma presented his dish with a flourish, proud of his work. While everyone tasted it, Satoshi asked Soma where he learned his unique braising method. Soma chuckled and shrugged, saying his father told him it was the best way to cook fish for that particular dish. His eyes twinkled as he remembered the advice. Satoshi nodded thoughtfully. "It seems like your family's influence is huge," she said. "Your dad's traveled all over, and your mother's been helping people around the world. That must have given you a lot of opportunities to learn different styles." Soma agreed, explaining that his family's experiences had formed him into a versatile cook. His father worked in busy kitchens, experimenting with local ingredients and techniques. His mother, with her humanitarian work, introduced him to dishes from all corners of the globe, each with its own story to tell. He recounted that his father had cooked in Asian markets, European taverns, and North American farmhouses. His mother, meanwhile, helped feed refugees and disaster victims, often improvising meals from whatever ingredients they had on hand. Soma's sister, having traveled with their mother, learned to adapt recipes quickly and to cook with compassion. These stories shaped Soma's outlook. Cooking wasn't just about flavor, but about sharing kindness and resilience through food. The scene froze for a moment, everyone feeling the warmth of Soma's stories and the richness of his experience. Up ahead, the upcoming competition promised to be fierce, but Soma had the ingredients, the skills, and the stories to make his mark. The kitchens around them buzzed with activity, the aroma of seasoned fish mingling with fresh spring vegetables, promising an exciting challenge ahead. Soma's heart was light, fueled by memories, and driven by the longing to prove himself in this brutal school where only the best survived. Satoshi and the others leaned back slightly, watching as others eagerly sampled the food prepared by Soma. Their expressions reflected a mixture of satisfaction and admiration. Soma's dishes, after all, weren't just meals, they were carefully crafted works of art that told their own stories through flavor, technique, and presentation. Satoshi pointed out how the dish's balance of flavors was masterful, a delicate harmony of spicy, sweet, and savory elements that danced on the tongue. Others chimed in, complimenting the way the textures complemented each other, from the tender cuts of meat to the crisp vegetables. Their conversation flowed easily, filled with genuine appreciation and friendly banter. This was a moment when food became a bridge, bringing people closer together, even in friendly competitions or disagreements. During this feast of flavors, Satoshi took a moment to explain the deeper meaning behind the culinary culture at Tatsuki Culinary Academy. He mentioned that any serious dispute, no matter how heated or personal, was often settled through a shokugeki, a cooking duel that had become the Academy's standard way of resolving conflicts. These food battles weren't just about winning, they carried the weight of honor and pride. The fierce confrontations, intense taste tests, and strategic preparations turned cooking into a form of high-stakes combat. Satoshi explained, with a hint of respect in his voice, that in Tatsuki everything was decided with skill and passion for food. He recalled the times when these battles could go on for hours, sometimes even escalating into full-blown culinary wars, with students and teachers alike standing by, eager to see who would prevail. He then brought up a reminder from the Academy's orientation how Soma, during that initial introduction, had told other students in his year to give up their hopes of taking the top rank. Soma's declaration had struck some as arrogant, yet Satoshi knew the mindset behind it. Soma wanted to make clear that he'd use his pursuit of the top spot as a stepping stone, something to push him forward and shape his growth. Soma explained that his words weren't meant to offend. Instead, he was simply being honest about his ambitions. He needed to be the best if he truly wanted to take charge of his family's diner someday. The passion in Soma's voice was hard to ignore. He was determined, even fearless, in his goal to reach the very top of the academy. As they discussed this, Soma's confidence grew. He looked around at his new friends and then back at Satoshi, curiosity glinting in his eyes. Who exactly is the Council of 20? Soma asked. His voice was steady, eager for understanding. Satoshi nodded. The Council of 20, he explained, is a group made up of the 10 best students at Tatsuki. They're considered the top of the top, above even the professors and the headmaster himself. He paused, letting that sink in. Their authority is absolute within the academy. If they make a decision, even the teachers are bound to respect it. Satoshi's tone reflected admiration and a bit of awe. And they don't just fight with words. The only way to challenge the council is through a shokugeki. If you want to be the best, you'll need to beat them in one of these battles. Soma listened carefully, taking in every detail. His mind raced with possibilities, imagining how powerful it would be to stand among those top students. Satoshi then added a surprising detail. He revealed that he was the current 7th seat on the council. A current member. Soma's brow furrowed as he processed what that meant. The council wasn't just a title, it was a position earned through skill, daring, and often fierce competition. The top seat, the first seat, was the most coveted, as that student held the authority to influence decisions and even challenge the professor's authority if needed. Satoshi's words hung in the air, heavy with challenge and opportunity. Would you challenge me to a food war? Soma asked suddenly, eyes narrowing with determination. He straightened up, the idea of facing one of the top students, and perhaps Satoshi himself, thrilling him. If I win, I want to take your seat. I want to see if I have what it takes to be part of the council. Satoshi looked surprised at first, then smiled softly. You want to do this? He asked, a hint of respect in his voice. That's a bold move. He studied Soma carefully, weighing the risk and potential reward. Do you understand what you're asking? Beating me isn't easy. You'll have to prepare to face someone who's in the middle of the council, someone who's experienced and skilled enough to hold that rank. Soma nodded firmly, unshaken. I believe I can do it. I've learned a lot here and I want more. I want to prove myself and I want that seat. His voice carried conviction, and Satoshi could see that this wasn't just bravado. Soma's longing to rise, to challenge himself, was genuine. As the last notes of laughter and chatter faded away, Soma looked around the room where they had just finished the welcome party. The place was a mess, scattered with empty snack bags, spilled drinks, and discarded cups. The glow of the lantern still flickered faintly, casting long shadows across the floor. Soma's gaze landed on the guy whose room they used for the celebration. He was slumped against the wall, visibly drunk, clutching the nearly empty bottle of sake with a lazy, drunken smile. His eyes drifted closed as Soma approached, gently guiding the man to his bed, careful not to wake him abruptly. Once the guy was settled, Soma grabbed some cloths and an old broom from the corner, rolling up his sleeves as he began tidying up the chaos. It was not just dirt and mess but also the remnants of a night filled with joy and laughter, a memory that would likely stay with him for a long while. While sweeping away the confetti and cleaning up the spilled drinks, Soma's mind drifted. He couldn't shake the strange feeling that lingered in this place, the dorm room. It wasn't just the odd layout or the unfamiliar smell of old wood mixed with the faint scent of alcohol, it was something deeper. His gaze drifted toward the transparent tubes running along the walls, sealed but seemingly unused. They looked like simple communication tools, but something about them gave him an odd chill. He remembered hearing rumors really about how those tubes weren't just for chatting between rooms. They'd been used by the dorm mother to relay messages and warnings, even to talk directly to students. It was an old system, one that carried whispers of past secrets and silent conversations. The thought made him shiver slightly but also feel oddly comforted. This was a strange place, yes, but it did feel like home, in a way. Perhaps the quirks and oddities weren't so bad, especially if they came with the warmth of a community. So, as Soma turned off the light and headed toward his room, he decided that living in the Polar Star dorm might be strange, but it was a weird kind of comforting. The next morning, Soma woke up with the sun filtering through his window, warm and golden. It was a bright, cheerful day, perfect for an act of kindness. He had decided to do something special for his fellow residents and their guests, the kind of breakfast that would leave everyone delighted. With a quick shower and a few well-chosen ingredients, Soma whipped up a hearty, tasty breakfast. The aroma of fresh eggs, sizzling bacon, and fluffy pancakes filled the dorm kitchen, creating a lively, inviting atmosphere. His aim was simple, to bring everyone together, including the dorm mother and her granddaughter. As they gathered around the table, Soma greeted them with a bright smile and asked about the process of a Shokugeki. His curiosity stemmed from the tales he'd heard, stories of intense culinary battles that could determine fate and status. Satoshi, sitting across from him, listened patiently. He explained that a Shokugeki was not just a simple cooking competition. It was a serious challenge, often with high stakes. First, both sides must accept the challenge. Usually, an official from the academy, like an instructor or officer, would oversee the acceptance, ensuring everything was fair and legitimate. Next, 3 unbiased judges chosen for their expertise had to be arranged, ready to evaluate the dishes without bias. The entire event would then be witnessed by the student body, making it an open contest that could stir the entire school. Satoshi explained that the challenge shouldn't be taken lightly. These were not casual cook-offs but battles where skills and strategy mattered the most. He added that both sides had to agree on what was at stake, ensuring it was something of equal value, nothing petty or trivial. Losing was serious, and the result could change a student's future. He chuckled softly, saying that betting a person's life or death was hardly the point. The power of the Council of 20 was too great for such trivial risks. Fumio, the dorm mother, nodded wisely. She explained that the council's authority was staggering, more than most students realized. They could decide the fate of many students through one Shokugeki, and often did. Unbeknownst to Soma and his companions, a high-stakes Shokugeki was already underway. Its players, Irina Naraki and Kiyoshi Gotobayashi, faced off to determine the future of the Chanko Nabe Research Society. The society wasn't just a club, it was a vital part of Kiyoshi's life's work, his passion. If Kiyoshi lost, the building housing their research, a shrine of dedication and teamwork, would be demolished. Themed around seafood, Kiyoshi had prepared a dish that showcased the heart of his research, a seafood Chanko Nabe. The dish was a rich, bubbling pot of fermented fish, crab meat, shrimp, squid, and vegetables, each ingredient used precisely as his society had studied. It was a hearty, robust dish, an embodiment of their studies, their hard work, and their camaraderie. Irina, on the other hand, created an elegant Italian seafood pasta ravioli di Aragasta. Her dish was delicate yet complex, the pasta freshly made and filled with a rich lobster meat sauce infused with garlic, lemon, and herbs. She presented it with pride, knowing her skills had reached a level that could challenge anyone. The competition happened in a large, open kitchen, lit brightly for the judges and witnesses. Both chefs worked furiously, sweat beading on their brows as they balanced timing with precision. Kiyoshi's team moved like a well-oiled machine, stirring and boiling, their focus sharp as they kept their bubbling nave at the perfect temperature. Irina, meanwhile, meticulously rolled out the pasta, filling and shaping each ravioli with care, her eyes fixed on her work, confident in her craft. When the time was up, both dishes were presented to the three judges: a stern-looking teacher, a renowned chef from outside the academy, and a former student who had achieved fame. Each judge carefully tasted it, savoring every bite. The room filled with anticipation as the judges whispered among themselves. One by one, they made their decisions, their expressions difficult to read. Irina was certain she'd win. Her dish was refined, flavorful, and perfectly executed. She looked confidently at Kiyoshi, expecting him to accept the inevitable. But Kiyoshi's face betrayed a mixture of hope and despair. His mistakes had been numerous: a burnt edge here, a slightly undercooked corner there. His vision was perfect, but execution faltered. Finally, the judges announced their verdict. A silence fell over the room as the judges' expressions shifted. Irina's dish was declared superior, but Kiyoshi's reaction was heartbreaking. His face twisted with disbelief and frustration. He stared at his dish, then at Irina's, and finally, he couldn't contain his feelings. His voice broke with anger as he demanded to know why her dish seemed so much better. Irina, calm but firm, stepped forward and handed him a small plate of her ravioli. "Taste it," she said gently. "Maybe then you'll understand why I won." Kiyoshi hesitated, then took the pasta, bringing it to his lips. As he chewed, his eyes widened. His face registered shock, surprise, and a deep sense of defeat. The flavors hit him like a punch: a perfect harmony of lobster, garlic, lemon, and herbs. It was as if the dish was fighting an intense battle in his mouth. Every bite made his stomach feel like a fighter in a sumo ring, powerful and overwhelming. His shoulders slumped. Tears welled up in his eyes as the realization sank in: his dream, his research, his pride, all hanging on this one loss. He dropped to his knees, sobbing openly. A low, broken cry escaped his lips as he realized the Chanko Nabe Research Society's fate was sealed. The building where they cooked, learned, and shared would soon be torn down, all that effort, all that hope, reduced to dust. The room felt heavy with sorrow, the atmosphere thick with regret and disappointment. Irina watched silently, her heart heavy with the weight of her victory, knowing the pain behind Kiyoshi's tears. The moment was a reminder: in this world of culinary battles, victory and defeat could change lives forever. Irina's eyes widened with regret as she took a step forward, her voice trembling slightly but firm. She looked directly at Kiyoshi, her expression filled with a mixture of apology and inner conflict. "Kiyoshi," she began, her tone humble, "I am truly sorry. I had no other choice. I didn't want it to come to this, but circumstances forced my hand." Her gaze flicked away for a moment, troubled and heavy with guilt. She explained that her position as one of the lower-ranked members of the Council of 20 carried immense pressure. A dear friend of hers, someone she had known and cared for deeply, was threatened by a ruthless, manipulative member of the council. This man, a power broker with deep ties to food distribution networks, held sway over many channels, controlling crucial resources that could make or break livelihoods. As a member of the lowest seat on the council, Irina lacked the influence to oppose him openly. Her only recourse was to accept his demand to step into a Shokugeki against Kiyoshi and his Chanko Nabe Research Society. She made it clear she meant no disrespect by this, no insult to Kiyoshi or his skills. Her standing, her reputation, and her family's future were on the line. If she refused, her friend and her family could face ruin, with their reputation tarnished beyond repair, their problems possibly spilling into their personal and professional lives. Many of her family's contacts could cut her off, and her social standing could tumble. Her words came heavy with sincerity, her voice almost pleading, as she explained the stakes were not just about the battle itself but about saving her friend's livelihood. Kiyoshi listened quietly, eyes gentle but filled with understanding. He could see her pain and the weight she bore. Though he knew she wasn't personally betraying him, he grasped the heavy burden she carried. It was clear this wasn't a matter of simple rivalry or pride. It was about protecting something far more valuable: trust, friendship, and the hope that her actions might shield her loved ones from ruin. As she finished speaking, a heavy silence hovered between them. Kiyoshi took a slow breath, his mind sifting through the complexity of the situation. He knew that Irina's choice was not born of malice or spite but of genuine desperation. Her loyalty to her friends and family shone through her words. Her sincerity struck him deeply, reminding him that many battles in life aren't fought over pride but over the need to protect what we hold dear. He finally spoke, softly but with conviction. "This isn't about me or losing a contest," he said. His voice had a calm, steady tone, one that carried both respect and understanding. "I understand your position. I know you're not trying to disrespect my skills or what my society stands for. I see that this is about something far bigger than battle lines." His gaze lingered on Irina's for a moment, filled with a silent acknowledgement. "If this is what you need to do to protect your friend, then I accept your decision. I want you to know that I don't take this lightly." He paused, then added with a gentle but firm smile, "I wish you and your friend all the best. May your efforts protect what matters most." His words carried a genuine warmth, as though he recognized the importance of loyalty and sacrifice. There was no bitterness, no arrogance, just quiet respect for her difficult choice. Kiyoshi then extended his hand in a gesture of sportsmanship, showing that the spirit of their challenge was rooted in respect, not rivalry. He clasped her hand gently but with a firm grip, letting her know that even in defeat, he believed in the strength of kindness and understanding. In the quiet aftermath, Irina felt a tear welling up but quickly brushed it away. She understood that sometimes, the greatest battles are fought off the plate in the choices we make when the stakes are highest. Though she had to accept the outcome she had feared, she did so knowing her action aimed to save her friend's future. Both of them, in their own ways, were fighting for what they believed to be right. And in that moment, amid the tension of the impending match, a fragile but genuine respect had been forged between them, a respect rooted not in victory, but in trust and compassion cultivated through shared hardship. After everyone finished their breakfast, they moved outside the dorm to enjoy the fresh air and the morning sun. The scene was lively, filled with the sounds of nature and quiet conversations. As they wandered around, Satoshi found himself drawn to the activity happening nearby. He watched as Shun Ibusaki, a tall, focused young man, skillfully wielded a chainsaw. With steady hands and sharp concentration, Shun cut through the thick logs of wood, chunks flying in all directions. The blades hummed in a rhythmic pattern as wood chips, tiny splinters of bark and pulp, scattered onto the ground. Satoshi couldn't help but stare, impressed by how precise and confident Shun was. It looked almost effortless, like he was part of the machine. Next to this, Ryoko was explaining how Shun's work tied into their meals. She leaned over, smiling as she pointed toward the woodpile. "That's how he makes the wood chips for his smoked dishes," she said softly. Her voice carried a tone of pride. "He uses the wood to give flavor to his smoked meats and vegetables. It's part of the way he adds his personal touch." Her eyes sparkled with admiration at Shun's dedication. She knew that each slice of wood he produced played a role in making their meals taste special, adding smoky depth that couldn't be achieved with store-bought ingredients. Ryoko's words made Satoshi think about how different each student's way of getting ingredients was. She explained that she had her room where she grew and fermented her ingredients. She kept herbs and spices in small pots and jars, carefully watching over their growth and fermentation process. Every ingredient, from the smallest herb to the special fermented sauces, is made with care, she said softly. The room she kept was filled with jars of pickled vegetables and tiny plants sprouting under grow lights, a testament to her meticulous skills. She took pride in crafting flavors that could elevate her dishes to something truly memorable. Yuki Yoshino's approach was just as unique. She raised her animals, carefully selecting each one to ensure they developed the flavor and texture she desired. She milked the cows, cared for chickens, and even kept pigs, all with a sense of responsibility and respect. When she cooked, Yuki used meat she raised herself, knowing exactly how it was bred and nurtured. Her understanding of her animals gave her dishes a deep layer of authenticity. She believed in respecting nature's gift and letting it shine in her cuisine. Satoshi's attention snapped back to the scene around him as he noticed Satoshi Ishiki. Unlike the others, Satoshi handled a large farming tool, working diligently in the vegetable fields outside the dorm. He was in charge of maintaining the large patch of crops that surrounded the dorm, the very land that provided much of their food. The field stretched out like a sea of green, dotted with rows of leafy vegetables, root plants, and sprouting sprouts. Satoshi nodded at this area with quiet pride because he knew that these fields kept the dorm self-sufficient. Satoshi watched as Soma and the others approached Satoshi Ishiki, ready to help with the busy work of harvesting and tending the plants. Soma marveled at how everything in their garden was grown and taken care of by the students themselves. From the smallest seedlings to the ripe tomatoes, every ingredient came directly from the land surrounding them. The fact that the dorm farm produced such high-quality ingredients amazed Soma. He'd read about farms that grew organic vegetables and promised freshness, but here it was all right in front of him, an almost perfect self-sufficient system. Satoshi extended a steady hand and handed Soma a bright, juicy tomato. The fruit was plump and vibrant, soft but firm. "Here," Satoshi said quietly, "give this a try. See how fresh it is." Soma hesitated only a moment before biting into the ripe tomato. The taste exploded in his mouth, sweet, tangy, with a hint of earthiness. Its juices burst on his tongue, giving a full-bodied flavor he rarely experienced with store-bought produce. As Soma chewed, he described every note, every subtle flavor he could detect: the richness of the soil, the freshness of the harvest, the care in every step of its growth. Seeing the quality of these ingredients, Soma's enthusiasm grew. He felt a new appreciation for the effort that went into every single vegetable and fruit. With a newfound eagerness, he stepped forward and began helping others tend the garden. He grabbed a watering can, carefully pouring water over the young plants, marveling at how healthy they looked. Each time he did so, traces of pride flickered across his face. He secretly wished he could do more, much more. If he could master the shadow clone technique, he thought, he could tend the entire vegetable field alone, leaving no plant uncareful or unattended. But his instincts told him that was impossible, at least for now. His parents had always warned him that true ninja kept their skills hidden. "Show your strength only when it really matters," they told him. They believed that revealing too much could put them at risk, even if it meant leaving some tasks to others. Still, Soma's mind wandered to the idea that someday, he could work alone, using every tool and technique at his disposal. That thought stirred a sense of ambition deep within his chest. As the day went on, Soma couldn't shake the feeling that these ingredients, their freshness, their richness, embodied more than just food. They were a testament to the dedication each student put into their craft. Shun's wood for smoking, Ryoko's fermented ingredients, Yuki's carefully raised animals, and Satoshi's meticulously tended garden all symbolized their commitment to their chosen paths. They were expressions of their skills, their values, and their connection to the land. This realization deepened Soma's respect and inspiration, fueling his longing to learn and grow, just like every other student around him. Soma soon discovered that students at Tatsuki Academy don't just form casual friendships or clubs, they create tightly knit groups called research societies. These groups resemble the clubs often found in high schools, where students share common interests and passions. But at Tatsuki, these societies are more than just social clubs. They are hotbeds of innovation, learning, and fierce competition. Each research society is a small community of students dedicated to exploring specific facets of the culinary world that they love. Whether it's pastry arts, advanced grilling techniques, molecular gastronomy, or regional cuisines, the members bond over shared passions and push each other to improve. These groups often revolve around a theme or subject that the members are particularly curious about. For example, a society might focus solely on sushi, experimenting with new techniques for rice preparation and fish treatment. Another might explore the art of desserts, mixing flavors and textures to create unique experiences. When students join a society, they don't just learn academic skills, they immerse themselves in a world that feels like a second home. The thrill of discovering new recipes, the satisfaction of creating something appealing, and the chance to exchange ideas foster deep connections among members. In Tatsuki, the atmosphere of these research societies is electric. The members spend hours exchanging cooking tips, debating culinary philosophies, and pushing their limits. These bonds often stretch beyond the classroom, with friendships blossoming that last for years. Some alumni stay connected, sharing tips, encouraging each other, and collaborating on new projects. Watching a group of students work together, it's clear that these societies are more than just clubs, they form lifelong alliances. Many of the girls at Polar Star Dormitory, listening to tales of these groups, might call it appealing to see such passion and camaraderie unfold in the kitchen. Yet, beneath this vibrant scene lies a brutal truth. The very existence of a research society depends on its reputation and the benefit it offers to the academy. Each society is, in many ways, a living, breathing organization that must continually prove its worth. That worth is tested in a Shokugeki, a high-stakes, intense cooking battle. In these duels, a member or even an entire society can face off against rivals or critics seeking to dismantle the group. If the challenger wins, that research society is dissolved, its members can no longer operate under the society's banner. The stakes are steep. The Academy's leadership isn't interested in sentimental attachments or emotional bonds alone, they favor merit, progress, and the advancement of culinary standards above all else. The challenge system is a ruthless shield designed to ensure only the strongest, most innovative groups survive. It maintains a strict balance. If a research society can't uphold its reputation in a Shokugeki, it ceases to exist. These battles aren't playful contests, they are fierce, cutthroat duels where every move counts. Chefs face off with a mix of skill, strategy, and mental toughness. They throw everything they have into a final showdown. The tension is thick as smoke fills the air, knives flash, and flames roar in the heat of competition. A champion might layer a dish with complex flavors or execute a traditional technique with flawless precision. Opponents respond with bold, creative counters, trying to outthink and outcook their rivals. Some battles spill into dramatic sequences where a chef may turn the kitchen into a battlefield. Smoke billows as a chef fires a blowtorch to caramelize a dessert, while another artistically drops ingredients with explosive speed and skill. Each move is deliberate, calculated, designed to sway judges and prove the strength of their society's ideals. The judges often include notable alumni, tough critics, or even the Academy's top instructors who watch intently, ready to call out any mistake. Every ingredient, every technique, and every decision is scrutinized. Throughout these fierce contests, pride is on the line. For the participants, losing isn't just a setback, it's the end of a dream. Their research society's existence, their reputation, and sometimes their future within the Academy rest on a thin edge. Such battles can be brutal. They can stretch for hours, with tension building up until the final presentation, a dish that must surpass all expectations. A well-executed dish can evoke cheers from fellow students, but a poorly timed mistake can shatter everything in seconds. The energy in the room is electric, filled with a mixture of hope, anxiety, and raw determination. The culture at Tatsuki means that these battles aren't just about culinary skill, they are about discipline, resilience, and the will to succeed against overwhelming odds. Behind every research society lies a story of ambition, sometimes personal, sometimes collective. The students believe in their craft, and they often pushed themselves beyond limits they didn't think possible. Yet, despite the cutthroat nature of these competitions, there's a strange bittersweet beauty to watching aspiring chefs test their skills in such brutal ways. It's a place where only the strongest survive, where merit reigns supreme, and where the stakes are undeniably high. Tatsuki's overall environment is like that, brutal, cold, and heartless to outsiders, but also undeniably compelling. It's a place where ambition is forged in fire, where friendships are tested and strengthened through adversity, and where culinary mastery is the only path to true respect. No matter how passionate or tight-knit a research society may be, its existence is always on the line. The Academy's core rule remains unshaken: excellence above all, with emotional bonds potentially sacrificed if they threaten the pursuit of greatness. That's the true nature of Tatsuki Culinary Academy, an intense, unyielding place where only the best thrive, and everyone knows it. Soma sat quietly on a bench near the bulletin board, eyes scanning the numerous recruitment flyers pinned there. Each poster seemed to promise fame, prestige through the study of food research societies offering groups dedicated to learning about ingredients, cooking methods, and culinary traditions tied to specific regions. They all looked tempting, almost dazzling in their promises of recognition for those who truly specialized. But Soma's mind stayed distant. The more he looked, the clearer it became: these flyers, these groups, they felt too small, too limited. They wanted to focus only on one part of the world or a specific style of cooking, almost like blocking off entire flavors, ingredients, and techniques into neat little boxes. He shook his head with a small laugh as he looked over one flyer, then another. They all seemed to echo the same idea: study one thing, MSTR one method, and someday you might get noticed. Yet, for Soma, it was never enough. He didn't want to spend his life confined to a single region, a single cooking style, or even a single brand. To him, cooking wasn't about boundaries, it was about crossing them. He wanted to learn everything, every culture, every ingredient from across the world. Not just food from one place, but a mixture of flavors, techniques, and traditions. To him, it was like creating a feast made of all the world's tables, where everyone could sit together and enjoy the same meal, regardless of where they came from or what they believed in. "I want to cook without limits," Soma said softly, almost to himself. His voice carried a quiet strength that drew some attention from passers-by. He looked up at Megumi, who had been watching him with a curious expression. She stepped closer and asked, "What's bothering you, Soma?" He chuckled, running a hand through his messy hair. "Oh, it's just these endless flyers," he said, waving at the posters. So many groups focusing on studying one thing. Study of food from a certain region, or a specific ingredient, or technique. Famous research societies, all promise recognition if you become an expert in just that. But to me, that's too narrow. That's like painting with only one color. I want to explore everything. Food connects everyone, and I believe cooking should be about sharing that connection, not locking it away in small boxes. He paused, eyes filled with conviction. "I don't cook for fame or money. I don't care about becoming famous because I cooked a certain dish. I cook because I love it. When people eat my food and smile, that's all I need." There are some who say cooking is just a job or a business. That's fine, but to me, cooking without love is just garbage. It's like eating plastic, fake food. It's empty. I refuse to put that kind of stuff into my body or my life. His words struck a chord in some listeners nearby. A few students paused, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. Some scoffed quietly, dismissing his ideals as naive, while others looked contemplative, beginning to question their own views. A handful started to think about what kind of chefs they wanted to be. Among the crowd, one particular figure overheard Soma's statements: a member of the Council of 20, a group of powerful, influential figures who held authority over many aspects of culinary study and the direction of food research. That person, Etsuya Aizen, was known for his sharp mind and even sharper tongue. And when he heard Soma's words, Aizen's lips curled into a skeptical smirk. Naive at best, Aizen muttered, voice low enough that only a few could hear. Stupid at worst. His eyes, cold and calculating, focused on the young chef. Cooking is about money. It's a business. People open restaurants, start chains and make products that sell. That's where the real value lies. He paused, shaking his head dismissively. All that sentimental nonsense about loving food, please. Sorry, but that kind of talk isn't worth a DMN in the real world. It's what kids say when they're dreaming too big. Cooking without a profit? That's a waste of time. You can't build a career on feelings alone. Aizen was known as a shrewd man, highly pragmatic, and often ruthless in his judgments. His reputation was built on strict standards, and he saw idealism as a distraction from the harsh realities of the culinary world. Standing amidst the bustling crowd, he crossed his arms and looked down his nose at the gathering of students near Soma. His mind flicked to the idea of shutting down the research society that Soma represented, a group that aimed to study and develop food for low-income communities, those who struggled to pay for decent meals, yet who still deserved respect and innovation. Low income, Aizen muttered, almost spitting the words. Low-income people are a waste. They'll never be anything more than consumers at the bottom. They can't afford gourmet dishes, so what's the point? Why waste time and resources on them? That kind of charity is a waste of effort. Better to focus on those who can pay, those with money, power, and influence. That's the only way to make money, to make a mark. Food for the poor. That's just a pity project. It's not worth real attention or investment. His scowl deepened. His mind was already planning how to get rid of the society, how to push those ideas aside and focus solely on monetary gains. If we start caring about serving low-income people, we're just diluting the standards, he thought. And we'll never get any respect from the high table, the truly major players in the business. His face hardened with the belief that money was the only true currency in the culinary world. In Aizen's mind, it was as if Soma's idealism posed a direct threat, a gentle rebellion against the ruthless logic of profit-driven cuisine. The young chef's words, so pure and heartfelt, seemed like foolishness in the eyes of Aizen, who saw himself as the embodiment of practicality. He viewed the young man's passion as a naive dream, a possibly noble but ultimately pointless pursuit. And yet, there was a flicker of tension, the conflict beneath the surface that held the potential to explode. Soma, unaware of the storm brewing behind Aizen's calm exterior, continued to advocate quietly for what he believed was right. His words, those simple declarations of love for cooking and respect for all kinds of food, resonated deeply among some students. They heard the passion, the core belief that food was meant to unite, not divide or restrict. But beyond those supportive voices, others remained skeptical, some downright hostile. They considered Soma's ideas too idealistic, impractical, and out of touch with reality. For Aizen, the notion of dedicating resources to low-income communities felt like a waste, a distraction from the real goal, generating wealth and securing power through culinary excellence. This divide, this clash of ideals between love and money, cast a long shadow over the gathering. In that moment, it became clear, the future of food, of cooking, wasn't just about ingredients or recipes. It was about values. About what mattered most: money or love, profit or passion. As Soma looked around at the faces in the crowd, he felt the weight of that choice pressing down on him, knowing full well that this conversation, this battle of ideals, was only just beginning. Without Soma knowing it, his little speech was heard by one person: Kenichi Konishi, the last member of the Donburi Research Society. Why was he the last member? Because the assistant of one of the Council of 20 challenged Don RS to a Shokugeki, and the person was so formidable in the intended theme of the Shokugeki that she was believed to be unbeatable. There is no way a person hoped to beat the Academy meat expert, not when they had access to the very best grade meat ingredients. This was akin to an ant fighting Godzilla, so every single member of the Don RS just gave up. They left the research society and looked for other societies that would welcome them, or they just dropped out of the academy. Soma and Megumi had been planning this trip for a while. They decided to visit the Donburi Research Society after noticing a poster posted outside their usual local hangout. The poster had caught Soma's eye instantly. It advertised a meal concept that sounded almost too good to be true: affordable, tasty, filling, and all served in one big bowl. The idea of a simple but hearty meal struck a chord with Soma, who often found himself running from one task to another. A meal that could be eaten quickly, yet satisfy completely, was a rare find. It reminded him of the kind of dishes he saw around town: meals meant for people on the go, those needing nourishment fast but still expecting good flavor. This perfect balance of speed and quality was right up his alley. As they entered the Research Society's small but cozy shop, Soma's eyes immediately darted around, trying to take in the place's ambience. The signboard promised innovative takes on traditional dishes, sparking Soma's curiosity further. His interest was not just about the food but what the society was working on: their experiments, their ideas about reinvigorating classic recipes. He was eager to see if they'd developed a new way of preparing a familiar dish or perhaps invented something entirely fresh. The shop was as quaint as Soma imagined. Shelves were lined with colorful books, many worn with use, filled with recipes from different regions. The air smelled faintly of soy sauce and seasonings, mixed with a hint of aged paper. Soma's gaze landed on a particular reference poster tucked among the books, mentioning the union of traditional ingredients with modern techniques. That poster became the spark for a quick conversation with Megumi. She quietly nodded while flipping through a recipe book and then handed Soma one of the thicker volumes to look at more closely. She knew he loved exploring new ways to mix flavors, from bold spices to subtle blending techniques. Soma's eyes flicked over the pages. The recipes weren't just old-fashioned, they were bold reinventions. Some used traditional ingredients but prepared in unexpected ways: fermented sauces added after cooking, or steaming methods that locked in flavor better than usual. Soma could feel his enthusiasm rising. These were recipes worth trying in his own kitchen. Some combined meat and vegetables in a way that amplified each other's flavors. Others layered textures, creating contrasts that made each bite exciting. Soma eagerly pointed out a few ideas to Megumi: a dish that used a slow-cooked beef stew with a twist, or a fried rice with a secret spicy sauce. He was already imagining how he'd adapt some of these recipes himself. Tasting them would be the real test, but even just studying the recipes got his culinary creative juices flowing. The way they combined traditional ingredients with new techniques made the whole thing feel fresh and inspiring. Soma's excitement was contagious. He looked back at Megumi, eyes bright. Meanwhile, the person tending the shop, a man sitting at the counter, seemed to be lost in a black hole of despair. His appearance told stories of long, sleepless nights. His hair was an old-fashioned pompadour, styled high and proud once, but now receding and disheveled. The hair was thinning at the temples, patches missing from stress and worry. His face was pallid, hangs of fatigue dragging down the corners of his mouth. His eyes, dulled by hopelessness, stared blankly into space as if he'd given up all belief in the future. His posture was slumped, shoulders sagging under some invisible weight. Speaking in a monotone, he looked like someone who could have been a contender in his prime but was now just barely hanging on. His look was so extreme that Soma hesitated. For a moment, he wondered if this was just character, a rough little image, maybe a grumpy old man or a tired chef. But no, this was different. He genuinely looked as though life had beaten him down, as if hope had drained from him piece by piece. It was almost tragic. Despite the tragic air, there was something painfully familiar in that visual despair, the sense of someone who'd seen better days and now struggled to find meaning or energy. Megumi, meanwhile, moved closer to the bookshelves, examining the recipe books with quiet curiosity. She was always interested in how traditional dishes could evolve. As she browsed, she handed Soma a modestly sized paperback full of recipes that seemed to focus on hearty, simple fare. "Look at this one," she said softly, pointing to a page filled with vibrant illustrations of stews and grilled dishes. Soma took the book, glancing at the detailed notes. The recipes seemed familiar yet innovative, simple ingredients but prepared in ways that brought out new flavors. The book emphasized technique, which Soma appreciated. Esoteric techniques often reveal the true nature of traditional ingredients, elevating an ordinary dish into something special. Soma's reaction was immediate. He flipped through the pages, his mind racing. "These use ingredients I've seen before," he said, a spark of excitement in his voice. "But how they combine and cook them could change everything. It's not just about the ingredients but about the technique. I'd love to try making some of these. I wonder how these flavors would come together in the pan." At that exact moment, the man behind the counter finally snapped out of his daze. His eyes focused on Soma and Megumi for the first time, and recognition flickered across his face. He scrambled to sit upright and gave a weak, sheepish bow. "Oh, I didn't see you come in. Sorry about that. Welcome to the Donburi Research Society. I guess we're not exactly open for visitors, huh?" His voice was a little rough, and he looked embarrassed as if caught napping on the job. Soma blinked, surprised at how dismissive he'd been. "It's okay," Soma said warmly. "We're interested in what you're working on. Your posters caught our eye, your ideas about combining traditional ingredients with new methods. It's pretty fascinating." The man's face twisted into a grimace. "Well, those posters are just fantasies. The truth is, we're in trouble. We're about to face a tough challenge, something that might mean the end of this place." His voice was low, carrying a hint of resigned sadness. Soma leaned in, curiosity sharpening. "What kind of challenge? Why is this place going under?" The man hesitated before answering, taking a deep breath. "It's a matter of respect, and a battle. We've been invited into a Shokugeki, the kind of cook-off where the stakes aren't just bragging rights but real consequences. We face a formidable opponent, someone who is very good at cooking with meat. The best, actually. Her name is Ikumi Mito, but everyone calls her the Meat Queen." His voice almost grew reverent. "She's the heiress to one of the biggest beef producers and distributors in the country. Kenichi, the owner of that company, likes to call her the meat to tease her about her obsession with beef. That's how serious this is." Soma's eyes widened in surprise. "A Shokugeki over meat? That sounds intense. But why is it so important?" The man exhaled slowly. "It's about pride. Our society has always prided itself on innovation, on making traditional dishes better. But Ikumi Mito is an expert. She can turn a simple cut of beef into something divine, something beyond what most chefs could even dream of. We're trying to prove ourselves. We believe that traditional dishes can be modernized without losing their soul. But she's tough. She won't go easy on us. The stakes are high. The loser has to shut down their operations. It's not just words, it's real. Lives are tied to this. That's why everyone here is feeling the pressure." As Soma listened, he could feel the tension in the small shop thickening. Somewhere behind the despairing look of the man, there was the flicker of fierce determination. Megumi looked as serious as Soma. They knew fighting over a culinary battle like this wasn't just about winning. It was about respect for tradition, pushing limits, and proving who could best adapt and improve. Soma stood silently for a moment, absorbing the gravity of what he had just heard. His mind raced with images: meat sizzling on a grill, thick steak searing to perfection, and a challenging, high-stakes match where every move had to be precise. This was not just a mere competition, it was a test of skill, heart, and innovation, a true battle of chefs. It was clear that this challenge could define the future of the Donburi Research Society, for better or worse. And Soma, feeling the call of that challenge, knew deep down that he would want to be part of it, to see if he could step up to face someone as formidable as Ikumi Mito. Soma leaned forward slightly, a calm but serious expression crossing his face as he looked at Kenichi. "You know," he began softly, voice steady, "I've known the Mito family for quite some time. I've worked closely with them, helped train their children, and spent many days observing how they operate. It wasn't just a casual acquaintance, we shared a bond built on trust and mutual respect. He paused, running a hand through his hair, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. From what I remember, Ikumi isn't nearly as frightening as you might believe. You see, the Mito family is an extremely powerful clan, deeply involved in one of the major industries in this region, that of meat production, storage, and distribution. Their influence stretches far, touching many aspects of daily life. They have extensive ties with other prominent families involved in agriculture and trade, especially those dealing with beef, fish, and poultry. These bonds give them a lot of leverage, but they also come with a lot of responsibility. Soma's voice lowered slightly as he added, given how heavy and involved their operations are, I found it strange that Ikumi would behave the way you described. It doesn't match the way I've seen her act in the past, not even close. I mean, she's a part of such a powerful family, yet she's always been respectful and disciplined around me and her peers. So, I question whether she's acting out of her own will or if there's more to her actions. His tone carried an undertone of concern. In families like theirs, sometimes there are misunderstandings, or certain members act out because they're under pressure or feeling trapped. He gestured vaguely toward the horizon, lost for a moment in thought. Let me ask you, do you know about the operation called Chefs Without Borders? Soma's eyes sharpened as he said the name as if expecting recognition. Kenichi's eyes widened slightly at the unfamiliarity, but Soma continued quickly, it's a well-known group among those who work on the industry's edges. Chefs Without Borders is a project made up of expert chefs who travel around the world. Their main goal is to promote healthy eating habits, good food preparation, and better nutrition, especially in poorer or underdeveloped countries. They go into villages and cities ravaged by disaster or poverty, bringing not just food, but also knowledge on how to prepare it properly and eat well. Soma leaned closer, lowering his voice even more. My mother is one of the leaders of that operation. She's been involved in it for years now, and she's dedicated her life to it. The family's connection to it runs deep. The Mito family, as far as I know, is their main provider of meat, beef, fish, and poultry. They supply the bulk of what Chefs Without Borders needs to carry out their missions. He looked at Kenichi carefully. So, yes, I know the Mito family very well. Their involvement isn't just simple business, it's about making sure those in need get proper nutrition, especially during times of crisis. That's why I find it hard to believe that Ikumi would be behaving like a bully or acting out for no reason. Soma's expression grew more serious, the lines on his face deepening. It makes no sense for someone from such a family so heavily involved in humanitarian efforts to behave so aggressively. No, I believe there must be a reason behind her actions. Perhaps she's under some kind of pressure, maybe secretly resisting her family's way of doing things. Or maybe she's being forced into something she doesn't want. I don't think it's just pure malice. He paused, taking a deep breath, clearly weighing his next words. In these powerful families, conflicts aren't always obvious. Sometimes they hide behind lies or false appearances. I've seen it many times before. A family might seem as if they are united, but internal struggles can turn siblings or cousins against each other, especially when ambitions or loyalties clash. It could be that Ikumi's behavior is a cry for help or a sign she's caught between two worlds, her family's traditions and her own beliefs. Soma then looked directly at Kenichi, voice firm but empathetic. You need to see beyond her actions. Understand that there could be deeper layers here. I've seen so many cases where a person appears to be a bully or a villain, but behind that facade is someone fighting a quiet battle. It's easy to judge from the outside, and I admit, I used to do that myself. But once you get to know the full story, it's rarely black and white. There's always more than meets the eye. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. So, I ask you, do you have any idea what might be going on? Have you seen her acting differently? Because I can tell you this, families like the Mitos run with a code, a strict sense of honor and loyalty. If Ikumi is acting out, it could mean she's trying to send a message, or perhaps she's being forced to do something against her will. If that's true, then even if she appears tough or ruthless, it might be out of self-preservation or, worse, desperation. Soma's words lingered in the air, heavy with concern and a quiet hope for understanding. His tone softened just slightly as if to reassure Kenichi that there was always a reason behind human actions, even those that seemed harsh or unforgiving at first glance. The truth was complex, wrapped in secrets, family ties, and unseen struggles. Soma's belief was clear: behind every act of cruelty or defiance, there was a story worth hearing. And sometimes, knowing that story made all the difference in how to respond, how to intervene, and how to bring peace to what had become a tangled web of loyalty, pride, and hidden hardship. Soma was deeply engrossed in studying the recipe books of Don R.S. He was flipping through pages filled with detailed instructions, notes, and annotations, an intricate collection accumulated over years of culinary mastery. The room was quiet, save for the faint rustling of paper and the soft scratch of his pen as he made notes of his own. It was during this focused moment that the doors suddenly opened, and Ikumi Mito stepped inside. Most would have expected her to come in with an intimidating glare or a sneer, looking to threaten or show off her demps, especially since she knew her opponent was still there. Some might have thought she'd walk in with her usual commanding presence, ready to assert her authority or even gloat over her presumed victory. But instead, she chose a different approach. She didn't come to threaten or to brag, but with purpose. She had brought along a crew team members equipped with tools and supplies sent to repair the damage caused by Aizen's thugs and to collect what had been stolen or ruined. The chaos initiated by that idiotic Aizen had been more than just a petty act of sabotage. It was a deliberate attack meant to undermine her reputation and destroy her chances of ever being around Soma again. The thugs, hired and manipulated by Aizen, had trashed her belongings and scattered her recipes across the floor as a crude attempt to humiliate her. It was clear the entire scheme was designed to portray her as a villain, a bully, and an obstacle. Seeing this, Ikumi refused to stoop to Aizen's dirty tactics. She wasn't going to play his game. Instead, she exuded calm strength. Without any visible signs of anger or frustration, she strode over to where the scattered recipe books lay. Her steps were measured, and her expression kept steady. She gently knelt down beside Kenichi, who had been watching all this unfold with wide eyes. With deliberate care, she began helping him pick up the books from the ground. Her movements were precise and gentle, reflecting respect and a longing to restore order amid the chaos. "Kenichi," Ikumi said softly, her voice firm but kind, "I don't want this Shokugeki. I'm being forced into it." Her words carried the weight of frustration and sadness. She explained how Itsuya Aizen, a manipulative rival, had leveraged his business connections to cut off her family's supply lines. With their livelihood hanging by a thread, she had no choice but to play along. "But that's not all," she continued, her tone sharpening. "Aizen is demanding I challenge the Don RS your club, Soma, to a Shokugeki. It's his way of trying to dismantle everything you've built. He doesn't care about fairness or community. He just wants power and obedience." Her eyes shone with a mix of anger and shame. "I'm sorry you're caught in this, Kenichi. None of this should have happened. You don't deserve to be a pawn in his schemes." Kenichi stared at her, stunned but slowly understanding. Relief flickered across his features. Soma had told him Ikumi wasn't a villain. Now, hearing her truth, he felt vindicated. "Hey, Soma," Kenichi said quietly, a small smile creeping onto his face. "You were right. Ikumi's not the bad guy. She's just stuck in a bad situation." Soma gave a quiet nod, his expression calm but thoughtful. Meanwhile, Ikumi's eyes fell on Soma, who had been hunched over the recipe book, seemingly deep in thought. For a heartbeat, her tough exterior cracked. Her face softened with warmth and a rush of affection. Without hesitation, she moved toward him, her steps quick and unguarded. Her arms wrapped around him in a tight embrace. "Soma," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "I found you. I knew you'd be here. Her hug was firm and sincere, a single moment of peace amidst the turmoil. It was more than just a reunion, it was a glimpse of the girl fighting to stay herself, even while under pressure to become something else. Soma gently returned the gesture, smiling faintly. "You holding up okay?" he asked, voice low. She nodded, then stepped back, a flicker of determination now in her eyes. "Listen," she said, her tone shifting. "Since I'm already being pushed into this match, then I'm going to take control of it." Her expression turned steely. "Aizen wanted me to come here and crush the Don RS, just another step in his plan to dominate the campus. But I won't be his weapon. I'll make this battle my own." She stepped forward, facing Soma squarely. "So I'm challenging you, Yukihira Soma, officially. But not for Aizen. For me." Soma blinked, then smirked. "You sure about that? Defeating me means the Don RS gets shut down. That's exactly what Aizen wants." Her eyes burned with conviction. "Maybe. But if I win, I'll make my own demand. Aizen doesn't get to touch the Don RS unless I say so. This match isn't about him anymore. It's about us and proving that good food doesn't have to come from expensive cuts or big reputations." She took a breath, then added, "I'm going to use my ingredients and show you what I can do. If I win, Aizen backs off. And you'll have to honor one request of mine." Soma arched a brow. "Any request?" She grinned. "One. Within reason." He gave a soft laugh, amused. "Deal. But just so you know, if I win, this ends here. No more threats to the Don RS. And no more Aizen using you to do his dirty work." They shook hands, sealing it. From the corner of the room, Megumi's eyes widened in concern. The stakes had suddenly escalated, not just with the survival of the Don RS, but with Soma offering to accept a mysterious favor if he lost. She opened her mouth to protest but stopped. This was how they operated: through food, through pride, through challenge. Plans were quickly drawn. The Shokugeki would take place in 1 week, giving both chefs time to prepare. It would be held in a specialized arena, complete with judges, a full audience, and the pressure cooker Tenshin Tatsuki was known for. As the others began organizing the logistics, Ikumi turned back to Soma, fire in her eyes. "You better not take it easy on me," she said, almost daring him. "I'm going all in, and I want you to do the same. No holding back." Soma looked back at her, smirking with quiet confidence. "Wouldn't dream of it." He already felt his mind racing, thinking of the ingredients, the techniques, the story his dish would tell. This wouldn't just be about food. It was a battle of pride, freedom, and proving once and for all that even the humblest cook could take down the elite. And if he won, the repercussions would ripple through the entire RS and beyond. No more demolition plans, no more threats to destroy the place. Instead, Soma would be in a position of power, with the ability to steer the future of the RS, possibly even more influence than before. But first, he needed to focus on that one simple goal: winning. The atmosphere grew tense as the latest twist sank in. The duel would be fierce, with sparks flying in the kitchen. Skills would be pushed to their limits, and each chef would be forced to dig deep into their resolve. Neither Soma nor Ikumi intended to hold back. Both knew what was at stake, and neither was willing to accept anything less than victory. The brewing storm of competition promised to be unforgettable, a true test of their culinary mastery and personal strength. As she left, Ikumi shot Soma one last look, filled with warning and challenge. Her voice was steady but edged with grit. "Remember, Soma. No slacking. Bring everything you've got. And if you think I'm going to go easy just because I'm battling someone I respect, you're badly mistaken. I'll make you regret underestimating me." Her words hung in the air as she disappeared into the hallway, leaving behind an unspoken promise that the coming week would be one of the most intense culinary battles they had ever faced. The mention of using the term bargain bin wasn't meant as an insult but rather as a straightforward declaration of reality. It was a way to cut through the excuses and acknowledge what everyone already knew deep down. The Donburi Research Society, once a lively group bustling with ideas and plans, had fallen into disarray. With most members having left, the society was now little more than a skeleton of what it used to be. Those who left not only took their knowledge but also carried away every penny they had contributed over the years. The funds, which should have been used for better ingredients, fancy kitchen tools, and research trips, had vanished along with them. This left the society flat broke, scraping money together just to keep the lights on. They'd love to buy premium ingredients, like fresh herbs, high-quality spices, or expensive cuts of meat, but the harsh reality hit them hard every time. Their budget was non-existent, which made experimenting with gourmet recipes impossible. In the next 4 days, Soma was determined. He knew that if they wanted to stand any chance, they had to push the limits of what they could do with the limited resources available. The most valuable ingredient they had was beef, an expensive cut, no doubt, and Soma was determined to make every penny count. He scoured the market, pushing himself through crowds to find the cheapest beef he could get his hands on. Not just any beef, he aimed for the best he could buy without breaking their tiny budget. When he returned, he went straight to the kitchen, his mind racing with ideas. Over those 4 days, he used every scrap of beef, trying out different recipes and cooking methods. Each attempt was a battle, a test of patience and ingenuity. He would cook the meat in various ways, adjusting the heat, timing, and seasoning in a relentless quest to unlock flavor. Kenichi, a seasoned cook himself, watched Soma's efforts with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. He knew how tender high-grade beef could be, especially the prized A5 Wagyu, which melts in your mouth with a softness that's almost surreal. Kenichi often whispered to himself, "That stuff is so tender it feels like the meat is drinking you instead of you drinking it." No matter how much he explained or pointed out different techniques, Soma just kept experimenting. Every recipe was a failure, or so it seemed at first. The beef would end up tough, dry, or bland. Soma would get frustrated but refused to give up. What was clear to everyone was the challenge was tougher than they thought. They weren't just trying to cook decent steak, they were trying to win a Shokugeki, an intense showdown where every detail, every nuance of flavor, could tip the scale in their favor. As the days went by, the team grew more desperate but also more determined. The truth was, no one was delusional about the difficulty. Kenichi knew that no matter how good the beef was, if it wasn't cooked right, all their effort would be wasted. They needed a real game changer. Soma, however, refused to be discouraged. He kept thinking back to the lessons they had once learned in that grueling class with the French chef. His stern face, cold eyes, and even colder smile etched in his memory. The chef was an expert at bringing out maximum flavor even from simple ingredients by following a strict, precise method. Soma remembered how the chef's signature move was a particular way of searing and letting the meat rest just right, all while adding a touch of honey, onions, and a special blend of spices. That had been the key, the secret that set the professional apart from the amateurs. Then, in a flash of insight, Soma realized something. That chef's technique might be the answer he'd been searching for. He shared this with Megumi, who listened intently, her brow furrowing in thought. Megumi's eyes sparkled with newfound hope. "We just need to do what he does," she said softly. "Use that method, the one with honey, onions, and spices. It might seem simple, but it works. It really works." Soma looked at her, and a slow smile spread across his face. He saw her cheeks flush slightly with excitement, and that convinced him more than anything. Her suggestion was pure genius, a simple idea, but the right one. It was a spark of brilliance that turned their hope into confidence. They planned out their final approach, focusing on perfecting that single recipe. Megumi showed Soma the exact way to prepare the spices, how to blend the honey so it coated the meat evenly, and how to sear the beef just right. They tried a few different variations, carefully observing how each change affected the flavor and texture. The aroma in the kitchen grew richer, more tantalizing with each attempt. They didn't cut corners, knowing that in a challenge like this, precision mattered. By the time they finished their last test tasting, they both knew they had cracked the code. The beef had a perfect balance of tenderness, flavor, and moisture. The spices blended smoothly, and the honey added a subtle sweetness that enhanced the overall flavor profile without overpowering it. The meat maintained its juiciness, and every bite was packed with rich, complex flavors. Megumi and Kenichi exchanged triumphant smiles, knowing that victory was within reach. No question, they could win this Shokugeki. They had the technique, the ingredients, and the confidence now. All that remained was to present their masterpiece and let the judges taste true skill. The days of frustration, failed attempts, and tight budgets had prepared them for this moment. They knew that their perseverance and cleverness had paid off. They stood ready, arms crossed, eyes sharp with determination, confident they had crafted the perfect dish to claim victory. The much-anticipated day of the Shokugeki between Ikumi Mito and Soma Uzumaki had finally arrived. The arena was packed with eager spectators buzzing with excitement. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Everywhere you looked, people were shouting, cheering for Soma or shouting for Mito, eager to see which of them would emerge victorious. Some fans even yelled predictions, claiming they couldn't wait for Mito to put Soma in his place and serve him a hefty dose of humble pie. They believed Soma's confidence was misplaced. To them, this was Mito's opportunity to show her true skill and crush her opponent. Others, quietly rooting for Soma, watched with a mixture of hope and nervousness. They believed he could pull off a surprise, proving that guts and passion sometimes outweighed fancy cuts of beef. As the countdown ended and the dueling chefs stepped into the designated cooking area, the air shifted. Mito, confident and calm, carried a slab of the finest A5 Japanese beef, rich, marbled, practically melting in her hands. Her expression was steady and focused. Soma, on the other hand, wasted no time. The moment the match started, he launched into action with swift, aggressive movements. Without hesitation, he began to chop a huge mountain of onions, their sharp aroma filling the air. The sight was unusual. Instead of intricately layering his ingredients, Soma's quick, chopping motion suggested a different game plan entirely. Urara Kawashima, the Shokugeki announcer, looked on with curiosity. Her brow furrowed slightly. She knew Soma was known for innovative dishes, but the chaos of his onion chopping seemed out of character. Meanwhile, Mito moved with graceful precision. She expertly used her butcher's knife to cut into her prized A5 beef, slicing it into tender, uniform pieces. Every cut was deliberate, almost artful. She then began to assemble her creation, preparing her famous A5 Japanese beef roti don. The scent of the beef, garlic, and onions wafted through the arena, hinting at a dish that promised both flavor and visual appeal. Time passed rapidly. When the clock was up, the cooks stepped back, presenting their dishes to the judging panel. Mito's dish was immediately a sight to behold. Her beef, sliced with such care and finesse, was arranged beautifully. The judges marveled at the way she had made the beef resemble a blooming flower, each petal carefully crafted from delicate slices of A5. One judge muttered aloud, genuinely impressed, about how she had maintained the beef's tenderness and flavor, all while creating an eye-catching presentation. The garlic-infused rice beneath the beef looked like a soft, fragrant bed. Her artistry and precision set a high standard. The other two judges nodded in agreement. They couldn't imagine anyone beating her dish. A5 beef was, after all, the highest grade meat, premium, juicy, and packed with flavor. To them, the contest was almost as good as over, with no challenger seeming capable of matching such quality. Then came Soma's turn. He laid his dish on the counter with a flourish, confidently unveiling what he called his Shaoyapan steak don. His reasoning for all the onion chopping became clear. His dish was built on layers of flavor, each element carefully thought out. One judge, skeptical, whispered that no matter what Soma whipped up, there was no way he could surpass the rich quality of A5 beef. The competition seemed stacked against him. Soma lifted the lid on his dish with a dramatic flair, the moment of truth. A cloud of rich, savory aroma burst forth instantly, causing the judges to hesitate and sniff the air. It was a potent scent, a mixture of butter, caramelized onions, and something earthy and deep that made their mouths water. One judge leaned forward and gestured to taste, despite their doubts. There was a murmur among the audience, many whispering about Soma's chances. Some of them doubted the quality of his meat altogether. One whispered that Soma's steak probably came from a bargain bin, something the grocery store wanted to toss away, heavily discounted, maybe even close to expiry. They believed Soma had simply made do with what was left, low-grade beef that had been marked down because no one else wanted it. But the judges hesitated no longer. They sampled Soma's creation with cautious bites. The first flavor exploded on their tongues, less about raw meat and more about the layers of garlic, onions, and seasoning melding perfectly together. Despite the doubts, the taste was undeniable. The beef itself, although not top tier, had been cooked masterfully. It was tender and flavorful, absorbing the rich, sweet onion base. One of the judges, surprised, commented that this was more than just a simple dish with bad meat. It had complexity and finesse. Soma's dish had passion behind it, and that carried it a long way. The audience watched intently, eyes flickering with excitement and suspense. Some looked stunned that Soma's humble, seemingly low-quality beef could craft such a complex, delicious dish. The rumor that the meat was cheap and discarded circulated among the crowd, adding an extra layer of drama. Still, Soma's ability to turn a questionable cut into a flavorful, deeply satisfying meal seemed to challenge all assumptions about what makes a good dish. At that moment, it was clear the outcome wasn't decided yet. Every detail, from the way Mito sliced and arranged her beef to the smell of Soma's dish, had created a heated, intense scene that marked this day as one of culinary rivalry and determination. Neither chef was backing down. Both believed in their craft, and both knew the battle wasn't just about ingredients or presentation but about heart and skill etched into every piece of food served. The crowd waited with bated breath as the judges prepared to make their final decision, knowing that at this moment, the true meaning of a Shokugeki had been realized. Ikumi watched with growing confusion as the judges examined her dishes. Their reactions weren't the same as when they tasted Soma's food. She could see it in their faces: no eager anticipation, no hunger that made their eyes flash with excitement. It was almost as if an invisible barrier separated her cooking from Soma's. Every judge took their servings methodically, finishing each plate without the rush or satisfied expression she'd seen before. It was strange, the judges usually showed their appreciation through eager bites and wide smiles. But now, their post-meal expressions carried something else, something colder and more measured. As they ate her food, their reactions were subdued. They didn't reach for more or show any signs of craving. Instead, they nodded politely, offered faint praise, and moved on. Yet, when they ate Soma's dishes, a different story unfolded. Each judge's eyes lit up. They seemed hungry, almost desperate, as if their stomachs were begging for more with every spoonful. They would comment aloud on the taste after each bite. "This is so good, I can't get enough," one of them said, voice muffled slightly by a mouthful. Another added, "It's addictive. I want more. Just one more bite." Their comments made it clear, the more they ate Soma's food, the more they wanted to keep eating. It was like a craving they couldn't control. When all the food was gone, the judges exchanged looks of deep satisfaction. Their faces showed contentment just before a wave of regret washed over them. Two of the judges lamented quietly that they'd already finished their servings. "I wish I had seconds," one grumbled softly, a hint of disappointment slipping into his voice. The third judge, a woman among them, smiled and nodded slowly. Her eyes sparkled with genuine admiration. "Soma's cooking is something I could enjoy at any time of day, lunch, dinner, or even a snack," she said, voice warm. "But Ikumi's dishes, they're very good, too. Nice for a hearty meal, no doubt." Her words carried genuine respect, but there was a clear difference. Soma's food was more addictive, more irresistible. It could be eaten at any time and still satisfy completely. Watching her speak, Aizen was stunned. Sitting in the audience, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. His mouth was open slightly, disbelief evident in his eyes. His plans, his hopes, all seemed to hang in the balance. As he got up and moved toward the arena, he overheard the judges' final verdict. Their votes were unanimous to everyone's relief or perhaps disappointment. All three had chosen Soma. He was declared the winner of the contest, a victory that sent a ripple through the crowd. Aizen's face clouded with anger and frustration. He clutched the contract he had secretly hidden in his hand, a legal document he had used to manipulate and force Ikumi into her predicament. Without hesitation, he ripped the paper in half, the sound sharp and satisfying in the tense silence. "That's it," he muttered, a smug smile curling on his lips. "Your family's done now, Ikumi." His words dripped with malice, confident that his plan had succeeded. Yet, deep inside, Ikumi felt her world tilt. Her family's future seemed to shatter, broken by his cruel tactics. Her hopes for stability crumbled utterly. Just then, the mood shifted. From beside her, Rindo, Soma's sister, stepped forward. Her smile was calm but full of meaning. She showed Ikumi a sealed, new contract. Her eyes sparkled with quiet triumph. "This entered into effect the moment the last contract ended," she said softly, holding out the paper. Her words carried reassurance, a promise of a new beginning. As she spoke, Ikumi saw that the previous dark cloud hanging over her was lifting. The fresh contract offered a sliver of hope, sealing her family's future anew. Rindo's smile was gentle but firm. "Now, your family is safe," she said, voice warm and reassuring. Ikumi felt a mixture of relief and gratitude flood through her. Despite everything she faced, there was still a light at the end of the tunnel. The next morning broke clear and bright. Ikumi prepared herself for what she thought would be her new beginning, eager to start anew as a member of the Dawn RS. With determination, she entered the building, asking at the reception desk where Soma was. Her heart hoped to find him, to see him again. Instead, the person behind the counter, Kenichi, looked at her with a flat expression and shook his head. "You misunderstood something," he said calmly. Soma was never a member of the Dawn RS. He only agreed to fight on their behalf, as a favor to them. That's all. Ikumi's face fell. Disappointment and confusion welled inside her. Her hopes to spend more time with Soma, to share more moments together, suddenly seemed empty. She had believed, deep down, that this alliance with the Dawn RS meant more, maybe a way to be closer to him. Now, she realized that was not the case. Soma's involvement was only as a favor, a temporary agreement, not an official membership. A bitter feeling sank in her chest, like a stone weighing her down. Her plans to become close to Soma, to support him beyond this contest, seemed to slip further away. She clenched her fists, trying to hide her frustration and disappointment. She had felt lost before, but now, the ache of unfulfilled hope felt sharper than ever. Inside, she wrestled with her emotions. Her mind raced with questions. What does this mean for her future? Will she still get a chance to see Soma more often? Will she ever find a way to get closer to him? She knew she couldn't change what she'd already lost, but that small flicker of hope refused to die. Still, the truth hit hard. Her decision to join the Dawn RS was based on a longing to be near Soma, and now she realized her plans wouldn't come true. She looked at Kenichi's steady expression, then turned away. Her footsteps echoed softly as she left the premises, a mix of frustration and resolve swirling inside her. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for sure: she wouldn't give up easily. The road ahead would be difficult now, but her determination was set. She would find her own way, even if it wasn't the way she had initially imagined. Soma paused for a moment, his brow furrowing as he reflected on the crowd's reaction. He could see it, clear as day. The viewers watching this intense cook-off felt a wave of disappointment sweeping over them. From their perspective, the Shokugeki had lacked the excitement they craved. People wanted to see a real clash, a dramatic showdown that would leave them on the edge of their seats. Their expectation wasn't just for appealing food, it was for a fierce battle, a spectacle that screamed action and tension. With a confident nod, Soma turned to Ikumi, his partner. Without hesitation, both of them reached into their respective pockets, pulling out two small, almost otherworldly cards. These cards, shimmering with an eerie glow, seemed to pulse with energy. Before anyone could process what was happening, the two chefs threw the cards with a swift, almost theatrical motion toward the last dishes they had presented to the judges. The moment the cards made contact, a burst of brilliant light erupted from the dishes as if a storm of magic had been unleashed. The light was dazzling, a radiant cascade that bathed everything in a surreal glow. It flickered and danced, like flames catching wind, before slowly settling. When the glow faded, the dishes before the judges had undergone a staggering transformation. It was as if the dishes had come alive, morphing in ways that defied logic and expectation. Ikumi's dish was the first to change. The plate shifted and expanded, taking on the form of a mighty centaur. Its body was massive, muscular, and covered in gleaming armor that looked almost carved from the same material as the rice in the dish, a coated, shiny surface that reflected the light. The centaur's head was adorned with horns that curled menacingly, and in one hand, it gripped a massive club that appeared to be forged from pure beef, thick and dense. The armor covering the creature shimmered with an unusual sheen, reminiscent of rice grains, and the trimming around it was the same shade as garlic, giving it a cohesive, aggressive look. The creature's eyes burst with fiery determination, and its voice, when it spoke, was deep and resonant, echoing confidently as it roared, "Don 5A beef, ready to fight." Meanwhile, Soma's dish was transforming into something equally formidable, an entirely different kind of beast. His reactor was a character, a mobster type with a thick, curled mustache, giving him a mischievous yet intimidating air. His appearance suggested a sharp, slicked-back style, donning a tailored suit the same color as the lush, green onions that decorated his steak. His face was gaunt, with a sly grin that hinted at cunning plans. Clutched in his gloved hand was a makeshift Tommy gun, crafted entirely from slices of steak. The weapon looked real enough to fire, but instead of bullets, it shot out flavors, its barrel seemingly filled with the fragrant aroma of rice and seasoned meat. As Soma raised the gun, he shouted, "Don Shoryupen steak," with a swagger that exuded confidence. His voice carried across the arena, adding a tense edge to the moment. The entire scene was surreal. The crowd roared, some in astonishment, others in excitement, all caught in the spectacle of this culinary beast showdown. The announcer's voice boomed over the scene, declaring, "Food on battle," the phrase echoing like a battle cry. Both of the transformed foodons, the fierce beef centaur and the charismatic mobster, began to circle each other, their eyes flickering with intensity. They traded blows, flavors, sparks, and fierce insults. The beef centaur swung its massive club, which cracked the air like thunder, aiming a crushing blow at the mobster foodon. Soma's Shoryupen steak dodged with quick agility, firing bursts of aromatic bullets from his steak gun, each shot releasing a burst of savory, smell-filled explosions that made the audience gg and cheer. The battle raged on with fierce energy. The two foodons moved faster than the eye could see. Ikumi's beef centaur swatted at Soma's gangster figure, trying to land a crushing blow, but Soma's character was quick, his movements sharp and calculated. He fired a rapid succession of meat bullets, their scent making everyone salivate uncontrollably. The two foodons locked in combat, exchanging blows and insults, with each trying to outdo the other in strength, speed, and sheer presence. The crowd was on its feet, caught up in the adrenaline rush. The tension grew thicker. Every strike, every move, felt more dramatic. Sakaki and other judges looked visibly tense, torn between appreciation of the creativity and the spectacle. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as the two foodons battled intensely, neither willing to give an inch. Then, in a sudden burst of energy, Soma's mobster foodon aimed his Tommy gun. With a dramatic flourish, he squeezed the trigger one last time, unleashing a final, thunderous shot. The burnt rice aroma filled the air, enshrouding the arena in an intoxicating scent. The beef centaur staggered, its armor shimmering and cracking under the assault. Its horns toppled, and it let out a final, thunderous roar. The crowd's collective cheer erupted as the last shot struck true. The enemy FUNN's form disintegrated, dissolving into sparks of flavor. Silence fell for a moment before the announcer declared in a booming voice, "Don Shall Yapin Stake wins." This climactic finish left everyone stunned. The arena echoed with applause and cheers, the lines between culinary art and the battle now blurred completely. It wasn't just a contest anymore, it was a legendary showdown, a spectacle that would be remembered long after. The audience relished the thrill, the drama, and the sheer audacity of the scene. It was a perfect display of how food could turn into a battlefield, a testing ground for creativity, strength, and spirit, an unforgettable CLMX that cemented this moment in culinary history. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Hector Flores on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.